we heard from everybody that literacy was something that really needed some focus. We also have a number of teachers and literacy specialists who are members of our group, so we had some easy resources to tap into right away. And a number of us, such as Kathleen and I, had a real passion for reading and for learning and for wanting to make sure our children had all the opportunities that they need to excel in school. So that's how we came to pick the literacy topic, and I think it's actually going to be a multi-year project because we're really excited about it. We have already started some projects in the community. Last month we were trained on how to teach parents how to read to their children and how to teach parents how to excite their children about reading. So our plan is to bring children to the library, teach parents how to read to their children. We're also doing, right now, about 15 separate book drives. So our plan is to get books into the hands of children, and we're going from there. We met today with Mr. Houlihan from the Literacy Volunteers. We've got some great ideas about how we can get into the Troy Housing Authority and do some literacy projects with them, and they're pretty excited about that too. So we have lots of ideas, but now we need your help. We're not literacy experts. Many of you are, and we don't have all the answers. We have some great ideas, but I'm sure that they could be developed better. We can also, I'm sure there's some collaborations that we can form to try to tackle some of these ideas, but we need to know who's interested, what kind of ideas are out there. We can build on those. So when I leave here today, I want to have a list of things that we can do, collaborations that we can form, that we can then turn into action. Okay, so think about that as we go through our questions tonight. Tonight's event is going to be moderated by Mr. Peter DeWitt. He is the principal of the Post and Gill Elementary School. So he'll help keep us on track and make sure that we meet our end goal. But before I introduce him to you, I want to, I know Danielle from the Troy Boys and Girls Club has a couple things to say.
Hi everyone, my name is Danielle. I'm the program director here. I'm just going to let you know where the restrooms are, and then I'll even talk a little bit, since it's about literacy, about what we do here. You go straight down the hallway, there is a men's bathroom, and then if you turn the corner, next to the pool, or the door that goes outside, there's the women's room. We do have some things here that cater to literacy. Last year I started a program called The Buzz, and it's a spelling bee program. I take all of the words from the Scripps National Bee, and we go over those words. If you saw the wall coming down the stairs, there's index cards on that wall. The kids take that down, they write 3 times each a sentence and the definition for a club dollar that they can use in our club store. It's very popular. The words go up, they come down really fast. And I usually have to refill during the day, like come down the stairs and put the word back up. Another thing that we do, we've had poetry club here, and we've had other creative writing, and we also have power hours. So all of the kids know that every day when they come here that they have 45 minutes to do their homework, or something educational if they don't have homework. So, and usually homework appears when they figure out that they have to do something anyway. So that's basically what we do as far as literacy goes. We have an array of other programs like drama and dance and some other things. So, yeah, if you're interested in any of those things and connecting with what you're planning to do, I'd be glad to collaborate.
Great. Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome.
I also have Carla Guerreri here, who is here representing our City Council President, Lynn Kopka. I know that they've been talking about education initiatives, and she has a couple remarks.
We have. I have a statement from Lynn to read. She couldn't be here herself because she's over at City Hall preparing for the budget hearings, which I'm going to need to be at by 7 o'clock. So it's unfortunate that she couldn't be here, but she did put some thought into this, looked at a little research. She and I had to talk about it. She sent me to read this from her. An educated community is a prosperous, productive, and active community. Education is the key to our individual success, as well as our collective fortune. Our society was built on this premise, and it's the reason for being for our vast public school system. Yet a whole segment of our society is continuously behind the 8 ball, generationally. We don't have to look very far to see examples of this in struggling neighborhoods in Troy. Research provides us with a few other facts, which when pieced together may help us solve this puzzle. Several studies reported in the media tell us that the number one factor most highly correlated with a child's success in school is the educational level of the mother. Sorry, dads. The next factors, that has been found. The next factors in descending order are family income and availability of reading and or printed materials in the home. So it sounds like you're on top of that, what you've done in the last year.
Yeah.
Family literacy has become the buzzword in many discussions, like the one we're having here tonight. Meeting Common Core standards in kindergarten is a noble goal, as are the others slated for discussion tonight, but easier said than done. The task of increasing the literacy of our community will take a combined effort. It's not traditionally been the place of the municipal legislative body to mandate standards or approaches to teaching and learning, but in this competitive global climate, we all have to work together. I'm very sorry that I cannot be here this evening. I will carefully review what you, the experts and boots on the ground, discussed tonight. Together, all of us, the educational institutions, unions, parents and students, businesses, local governments, will find ways to partner to educate the children of our community for the demands of the future. Lynn Kupka.
That really sets a good stage for us, and I'm glad that we have their support, and you can let Lynn know that she's welcome to do a book ride if she likes.
I shall do that.
Fantastic. Okay, so we are honored here to have as our moderator, as I said before, Mr. Peter DeWitt, principal of the Poston Hill Elementary School. I'm just going to take a moment to tell you all about him. Peter has served as principal at Poston Hill Elementary School, and that's in the Averill Park School District, since 2006. And he was named the 2013 New York State Outstanding Educator by the School Administrators Association of New York State. His blog, called Finding Common Ground, on the Education Week website, and his most recent book, Dignity for All, Safeguarding LGBT Students, have both received national attention and acclaim. Peter most recently appeared on NBC's Education Nation and has also discussed the topic on WNYT Channel 13, abcnews.com, and PBS. He's published over 30 professional articles and delivered nearly as many presentations for organizations including the Hawaii Department of Education, the National Association of Elementary School Principals, and the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development. We are pleased and honored to have him here with us tonight. Please join me in welcoming Peter DeWitt.
Sarah's a former parent of mine, so I made her sit next to me, because I noticed that when I got here, no one wanted to sit next to me. That was something that I did. Thanks for asking me to do this. It's not something, I don't get an opportunity to moderate a lot. And what I like about this format is the fact that there are so many good collective minds here, that when I talked to these ladies last week, I had said, I think philosophy is great. You get a lot of that in college. But I'm a blogger. And the whole point of doing blogging is that you put something out today that people can use tomorrow. And we're just going to waste everybody's time if we just sit here talking about the philosophy behind it. And I really wanted to provide practical steps so people can leave here tonight and kind of hit the ground running tomorrow. So I'm really looking for advisement from you. I did teach primary education for 11 years. I taught in Poughkeepsie and Waterloo, so I have city school background before going to Averill Park, which is both rural and suburban. But everybody has their issues, and literacy is definitely one of them. So what I would like to do, actually, is go around the room and have you introduce yourself, because we have a smaller crowd, which is good. And I think if you give us a little bit of your background, you're going to be more apt to participate in the discussion. If not, you have name tags and I can just call on you. Just fine. So we'll start to my right.
Very good. My name is Sarah Ryan, and I am a Junior League member. I am a parent. I'm a reader. I'm a community advocate for Catholic Charities in North Central Troy, the School 2 catchment area.
I'm Kathleen Lisson, and I'm a member of the Junior League of Troy, and I'm on the board of directors for the Literacy Volunteers of Rensselaer County.
Hi, my name is Tina Brady. I'm a Hudson Valley student. Jessica Ashley, likewise, and a parent, a very concerned citizen, and someone who is terrified for the future. Wondering what on earth can be done for young parents who have been denied the educational background that they needed to be the parents that they need to be for the children of today. So, here to get some information how to help parents with that.
I'm Charles Winter. I'm also a Hudson Valley student. I'm a parent as well. I was subbing at Albany High School from February to the end of the school year. And yeah, I wanted to see what I could learn today.
I'm Jessica Underhill with United Way of the Greater Capital Region. I am newly in charge of our Early Learning Initiative, Bright Starts for Brilliant Futures. And I'm here to see what's going on in Troy and how we can be of service.
I'm Ann Florid, and I'm from Hudson Valley Community College. I'm an instructor in the teacher preparation department. I've also taught years at the primary and elementary level. And I'm here to listen, learn, and I guess try to give some input.
I'm Brianna Mann. I'm a HBCC student, and I'm a program counselor for advanced therapy.
Sean Hunziker, principal at the Saratoga Boise's and instructor at the teacher prep department at Hudson Valley.
Susan Burrow, I'm a parent, and I'm also a kindergarten special education teacher in Schenectady.
Hi, I'm Donna Scanlon. I'm from the University at Albany, and I do research in early literacy development and prevention of reading difficulties and in teacher education. Why do I have to go after you? You do many good things. I'm Linda Carr. I'm a former classroom teacher, reading specialist, reading coordinator, ELA supervisor, and literacy center at Cap Region BOCES, and currently I do consulting. And Donna does wonderful work.
My name's Carol Roberts. I'm with the Troy Public Library. I'm head of Young People Services. I'm also a librarian. I have teaching experience, and I also worked with children as a sign language interpreter in an educational setting.
Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Lestique. I'm a junior league member, and I'm a health coach. I do a lot of work in community with kids, and passionate about making sure our communities are healthy.
I'm Lori Allen. I'm a junior league member. I also have over 20 years experience in nonprofit. 17 of those are in higher education, and the last six is in human services. I currently work for Unity House of Troy.
I'm Pam Rager. I'm a member of the Junior League of Troy. I'm the mother of a daughter who's now teaching 3rd grade, and I'm from the University of Albany. I oversee child welfare training programs.
I'm Katie McLaren. I'm also a parent, and I currently am teaching. I'm a teaching assistant doing academic intervention services in the Troy School 14, serving grades K through 5.
I'm Leanne Hansen. I'm the Director of Children with Special Needs for Runcer County. I'm here representing Kathleen Jivino. And the Children with Special Needs program, we're basically the administrator of services for children with special needs from birth to age 5.
Hi, I'm here to recruit you all to read to children in our Everybody Wins program. My name is Barbara Wyman, and I'm with Literacy Volunteers. And 4 years ago, we started a reading program for children where we recruit volunteers to come in while the children are eating their lunch, and we read to them, and the same child with the same mentor every week. I'd love to tell you all about it and have you come to a training and orientation and get you involved.
Good evening. My name is Rosalind Coates, and I am a Schenectady resident who's been concerned with our 3rd grade reading failure rate, and moved in 3 years ago and was just shocked. And each year we get the newspaper and it tells us the same story. And I decided that I would take action on it. And so the last 3 years I've been doing literature review on early grade reading and the birth to 8 continuum strategy. And yesterday we were, I work with my husband on this, Scott Felderman, and we yesterday did a webinar through the Schuyler Center for Analysis and Advocacy. And so that will be up on their website soon. It's about an hour-long presentation on my research finding.
And I'm the lesser half of the Scott Felderman, currently working as an independent consultant. Just to build on what Rosalind has said, we have been talking with communities across the state from Long Island to Buffalo, really looking at how communities, urban communities in particular, are dealing with the issue that they face in terms of kids not reading proficiently at third grade. We are currently doing business under the heading of Ready by 5, Reading by 8. Again, basically a theory of change that says kids need to be ready to succeed when they enter school. At birth to 5 is an important period in that child's development if we're going to be successful in cultivating effective readers, proficient readers.
Hi everyone, my name is Allison Villeneuve. I'm Assistant Director of Career Planning at Russell Sage College and also a member of Junior League. So I'm pretty excited to learn about working and supporting children in their learning because I'm so used to working with college students that it's really something like new for me and exciting. So I really look forward to it.
Hi, my name is Liliana DeGiorgio and I am presently a teacher at the Robert C. Parker School. I've been there for 8 years, and before that I was a teacher at the Art Community Charter School for 5 years. And I actually had the honor of having a few of the students from the Art come to Parker on scholarship for the 7th and 8th grade. So it's been really an honor to see some of my kindergartners come to the school and be students there and doing really well. Before that, I also taught in a literacy program called Even Start. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. It's no longer in operation, but I worked in the Troy Housing Authority for 2 years with the Even Start literacy program. And I've also spent 6 years at Sunnyside Center, which is run by Catholic Charities. And I was their 3- and 4-year-old teacher there, and also ran the after-school program. And I'm not going to go way beyond that.
Carla Guerreri. I consider myself the accidental city clerk for the last 2 years. Lynn Kupka told me not to talk about myself, but she's not here. So I have taught in public schools for the last 28 years. 20 of those years on an alternative program, starting in Amsterdam, taking that program to Scotia, and then after that I was with Questar. That program was defunded, and I think it really shouldn't have been defunded. At any rate, I have a keen interest in literacy. I feel very privileged to go to Albany State during what I call the Dick Ellington years, and some of my fondest memories were in classes at that time. So I would hope to get back into education somehow, some way, and I really come to believe that the most important years are those 0 to 5, and moms and babies together. So that's why I'm here. Don't tell Lynn.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rob Fox, and I'm a developmental optometrist in Latham. And at our practice, we're dedicated to working with children that have vision problems that affect reading, learning, and attention. And many people are given a false sense of security that their children have passed the school nurses test. Really, that just checks how well you can see the blackboard. Most of the children's time is spent up close, and we try to help make sure children are able to do that. We really need to just, on a most basic level, just educate people about the need for regular eye exams by age 5. We're talking about getting them ready because these kids are reading now at age 3 and 4, and we want to make sure they're able to do that. and there's no excuse for them not to get. We do a better job getting our kids shoes that fit than making sure they've had their eyes checked before they start school. There's no reason for that. On a personal note, I'm sort of having a flashback here. 30 years ago, I was a student at RPI here, and I was in a club called Youth Action, and we used to go out into some of the housing projects in Troy and take kids out on Saturday and Sunday outings. I remember driving the minivan to the school and stuff. So I sort of feel like I've come full circle here. Yeah.
I'm Tom Houlihan. I'm a social worker by training. I've been working in the human services for 30 years. For the past 15 years, I've been at the Troy Housing Authority as Director of Planning and Program Development. I'm also on the Board of Literacy Volunteers. At the Troy Housing Authority, we offer the opportunity to engage kids in their home community, and kids and their families, in community centers, in their homes, in the playgrounds on our community centers, to talk about reading, to promote reading, to bring reading to them where they live, and not just where they go to school or where they do other things.
I'm Heather Silvernail. I'm a member of the Junior League of Troy. I am also a special education teacher at Questar 3, which is the Rensselaer, Columbia, Greene County BOCES. I am a literacy specialist, and I'm an alumni of St. Rose and Walden.
Hi, I'm Lauren Payne, a member of the Junior League. I own a graphic design firm, and I'm a mother of a 14-year-old boy.
And I'm also a mom of 2 elementary school children. I have been very active with their school, and also by day I work for the governor as a labor negotiator.
Okay, so we have some ground rules and housekeeping. We'll start with the housekeeping, so I don't get in trouble. Because Kathleen has reminded me about this at least 3 times so far. In your packet, you have a childhood literacy symposium survey. You do not have to fill it out now, but if you could fill it out before the end of this night, that would be fantastic. We would hope to get it from each and every one of you. The ground rules is that I have about 6 questions and about 5 more in my head after we went around the crowd. And we do really want to hear from a lot of people, you know, sitting around each other. So when you're answering, if you could keep it as succinct as possible, that would be fantastic. We can't go on for 15 minutes, although some of us would like to. I am a school administrator, so I'm used to doing that. And the first question is actually something that I find very interesting, because so many of you have been talking about the 0 to 5 piece, which is something that I have always thought was very important. There have been a lot of studies done, but I remember reading one where it said that children that are growing up in high poverty areas are actually hearing millions of words less. And I'm looking at Dr. Scanlon because I'm sure you're gonna, I'm gonna be looking to you. Millions of words less than their peers by the time they get into kindergarten, which makes very difficult for schools, clearly, because schools get them at 4 or 5. So what literacy skills do children need when they enter kindergarten? And knowing that those kids that are growing up in impoverished homes hear millions of words less, what can we and the communities do differently about that? First question, getting the first answer is always going to be the difficult one.
I'll start.
Thank you.
And you're absolutely right about the language difference, the language experience differences, and millions doesn't necessarily bring up for folks.
Right.
The estimate is that children living in poverty hear about 1/16 of the language that their more advantaged peers hear. And so that's a huge difference between kids coming from different backgrounds. And so probably if there was only one thing that we could do, it would be talk to the kids. And encourage parents to talk to the kids and give them interesting things to talk about, and encourage lots of exchange back and forth, not simple, you know, did you like that? Yes. Did you like that? Yes. That's not going to help develop the kids' language skills. There needs to be a lot of talking, and particularly the research suggests talking about things that are not in the here and now. Because when kids have to, you know, sort of recount things that happened to them or talk about something that's not physically present,
it allows, it encourages, requires them to use more complex language.
Anyone want to follow up with?
I was just thinking about what you were saying about, it's so simple, you just have to speak, you have to talk to the kids. And I teach early childhood educators, that want to be, and one of the things we were doing this week was talking about open-ended questions, something that we try to do with teachers, and it's really hard. And I was thinking about how you said you did training, you were trained on how to train parents how to read. That's the other piece. Having training so that parents know how to talk. You could say, oh, ask an open-ended question, like you said. You could say something like, did you like your food today? What would they say? Yes or no? It's done. But what did you eat today? A referential type question. Or what did you eat today that reminded you of, and then, kind of open it up. And that's something that parents need training. I mean, our students, our future teachers need training. And I'm taught for I don't know how many years, and I'm not telling you. But the thing about that is I still have to work on open-ended questions to get that dialogue going, and it is so important at the very young age.
I always think of two examples. Number one, my mom. I have a great nephew, so I'm so old that now my niece has kids, and my mom used to watch him. And when we would talk on the phone, I would say, talk to him, ask him questions, and I would just kind of drill her, and she got sick of talking to me about it. Because it was just that simple to do something like that. And I often think back to the years when I was teaching, if I did ask enough questions. So it's something that, even though it's important to do before the age of 5, it's also equally as important that we continue to do that after the kids turn 5.
I would like to say that I've been in a lot of homes, and I've observed how literacy takes place at a very early age. One thing that I would like to say is please turn the TV off. If parents have the TV on, and they don't even realize that it's on, the volume might be completely off, but the TV is still there, which captures the kids' attention and really takes the attention away from having a conversation. Another thing that I observed is meals are not necessarily eaten as a family. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's try to maybe bring the family together at some point and have a conversation, even if it's just 5 minutes a night. Parents need to be instructed in how to do this. Turn the TV off, have a conversation for 5 minutes. How do you converse with your children? Okay, those open-ended questions. And give examples of how that is done in a family. And then empower parents. Tell parents that they are doing the right thing with their kids. What they haven't done is because they don't know. They haven't learned it yet. So really empower them and encourage them to talk any language, any broken English, as long as it is language. English is my second language. I've seen parents who were reluctant to talk to their parents, to their children, because their language was mainly Spanish or some other language, or they felt that their English was not the fluent kind of English that you hear from most people. Sort of like street English or whatever you want to call it. I will say, go ahead and talk in any language, any broken English, anything that you have, as long as you give your children language. Language is very important. It doesn't matter what kind of language it is, because it will translate, it will empower the children, it will give the children the skills for later on to take that language and translate into another language that they learn. I went from Italian to learning English, but I had a lot of language in Italian, so it was easier for me to learn English. So if the children are speaking some sort of a broken English, as long as they have that language, they will be able to do better in school.
So as a follow-up to that, because the whole point is practical information, how do we reach Because I know we're talking about pre-service teachers, we're talking about undergraduates, we're talking about teaching them how to do this. How do we reach the parents that aren't doing it without it seeming like we're arrogant about it? How do we get to those parents? As a former teacher, I used to find that one of my biggest barriers was that I had to engage the parents first and engage the child at the same time, because parents had preconceived notions of me when they were walking in, because they probably had a very bad experience, they most likely had a bad experience in school, which is why our job as educators is so important, because what we do today will definitely affect us tomorrow. But besides that, what are some things we can do? Because it sounds like we all have they're great ideas, and it's all about telling parents how to talk to their kids. Who's doing it, and how's it happen?
If I could just answer, and then you'd probably kick me out anyway, so I have to go and do the minutes. But with regard to your last question, could I just back up and say something about that too? Because this, I would concur very much that the turning off the TV is so important. And I was looking at those questions and talking to Lynn, and I kind of was joking about it. The city's contract with Time Warner Cable is up. What can a city legislator do? Well, maybe just don't give any cable company a contract. And we seriously said that. Well, we jokingly said that. That was serious. And I think that is so, so important to turn the TV off. And I agree. As far as the bringing the parents in, it is a problem. But in my career, I taught many young ladies who were already moms at 15 and 16. And I just thought at that point they were lagging behind in their skills. And if they could read to their children, they were going to improve their own skills at the same time that they were teaching their children. And if they could understand that all of the experiences and all of the reading and writing and talking experiences that they're having with their child from birth was going to add to that child's abilities, again, trusting themselves. That's, maybe the way to start is when a teenager does have a baby, see that you are there for them as they're starting out from the beginning. Now if they leave.
I think that this area of 0 to 2 language development is clear from the literature, and everyone has spoken to it. But it's also the one area of the literature that doesn't have an answer to how you actually reach the highest need. Those with the multiple risks. Those are families that have their families of divorce, and their families where they maybe don't have enough food. They're maybe having to move next month. Where does language come into the household that has many, many challenges facing them? And I feel that that's where actually the literature is the weakest on actually how to do that with 0 to 2-year-olds, because you're not going to be talking with them as teachers yet. They're not in the school system. So I think we really have to do a couple of things. Broach the early care and education community that's working with them and the school district. And I think together we can make the case that this is an important issue from 0 to 8. If we can only consider ourselves teachers from 5-year-old on, and we consider ourselves babysitters and childcare workers and social workers from 0 to 5, I think we're missing a real good connection. But I also think we have to gather together to learn how to do this. And maybe there are people here who actually feel the answers to these things. But that would be an area where I don't think Schenectady has to solve it all on its own, and Rochester doesn't. This is the children that we're talking about, 0 to 2, who need language development in the home in these multi-risk households. I think we have to get together and do some self-education, bring in people who feel they do have expertise on that to help train us.
I think part of the problem is, when we're talking about reaching parents, and part of that is giving them some sort of incentive, to do this, and every parent, I'm sure, well, maybe not every parent, but most parents want to do what's best for their children. Some of the things we do at the library, we offer, we'll have incentives for the kids, like, maybe they'll get a free book, or, like on Halloween, kids in costume get a free book. And, that's a really good way, I think, to just try to get people in there. Once they're in there, then I can approach them, and I can help them. But the problem is trying to reach, the audience. And sometimes you have to try to go where they are.
I think that we need to understand the culture of poverty. I mean, there's a lot of, or there are some good programs out there to help us do that. Because, I treasure a book, my grandchildren treasure books when I give it to them, but some families, some children don't treasure those books. And so how do you develop that? And I think that the people that live in poverty need to help us change it, that we can't, come down as educators and say, this is what needs to happen. It needs to come from the ground up with them being part of it.
It takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, the village was left out. And, when you think about, I remember when AIDS was at its peak, in certain areas of South Africa and other areas in that continent, they taught the people in the village how to assist and aid those people and educate their own people and work with their people. And that impacted that epidemic. And so what I'm saying is that I think that sometimes when we're up here trying to reach somebody down here, we've already lost the battle. It's hard to meet a person where they are when you're not where they are. And so I think that's one of the problems, that in a sense, in a way, people are excluded from being partakers in their own advancement.
We do what we can at the Housing Authority to engage people from our community to become natural helpers, either as volunteers or some staff we can pay. They help in our homework clubs, and they help with computer training classes and things like that. But we can only touch a certain number of people in our communities, and more bodies would actually help us.
So what forms of outreach are working? Like, to go back to your statement from earlier, it's there's a lot of literature on the whole idea that kids are not getting the vocabulary and the language that they need. But there isn't a lot on what's actually being done. But it sounds like there are things that are being done, especially when you're talking about the housing authority. Who else has a really great program where you're reaching out to community members? And as much as this is a poverty issue, it's not just a poverty issue. This goes across all, whether you're suburban, urban, or rural. And I've taught in most of them. This is an issue where that is concerned. And back to your point, there isn't a one-size-fits-all program. There isn't a silver bullet that is going to fix everything. And I often say that education is very complicated because people are looking for the one answer that's going to help everybody, and the reality is it's not. We're all so different that it's going to take a lot of different things to help us. So back to my original point before you tell me that I'm supposed to be the one to keep us focused, which you have no idea how bad that was for me. Sarah didn't speak up at that point. What kind of outreach are you doing in the community that's working? Even if it's with a small group of people.
I feel our Everybody Wins program, this is our 4th year, that it truly is working. One of the schools we're in is Sheridan Prep, Arbor Hill, Troy School 14. We just started a community preschool on 16th Street. And where community members, people from companies go in as a group. The RPI lacrosse team, Yale lacrosse team, they're going in and reading one-on-one, but they're developing a relationship. And I think that relationship is just so important. I saw that when we were part of the Even Start program. And, you know, that program went on in this community for quite a while, and it was successful in this community, but not across the nation, unfortunately. And, so you're right, there's so many different ways. The home visits are so important. I worked in migrant education for 20 years, and we made home visits and went to the migrant camps, but it was the relationships. I see the volunteers that work with adults and the relationships, you know, with literacy volunteers that they develop, and it makes all the difference. And I bet you the best teachers that you have are the ones that have the great relationship with the parents. So how we go about developing that, I don't know, you know, it's individual.
What I'm hearing, besides the relationships piece, because that is vitally important, is also the consistency factor. Because I do see that a lot of people are very good-natured, and they go out to help, but they only go out once or twice, and then it's gone. And that can be very frustrating, I think, on the other side, where it's, oh, here they come. They're the do-gooders who are just gonna come twice, and then they're gonna be out the door again. So the consistency piece is really important as well. Anybody else?
One of the programs that's located here in Troy and a number of communities throughout the state is the Healthy Families program, which does home visiting. It was designed originally as an abuse and neglect prevention program, but really has shown the potential to help deal with effective parenting, which includes language, but it also includes the appropriate parenting skills. So it's a relationship that will last for a number of years. So it builds that continuity. And that is currently operated, I believe, through Samaritan Hospice One. I also wanted to mention the Providence Talks. Providence, Rhode Island, they won a $5 million competitive grant from Bloomberg. And what they're going to be doing, what they found innovative in that, was that they are going to go into homes and actually, using new technology, be able to assess how many words are being spoken, how the child is, the interaction between the parents, and using that data with their caseworker in a very purposeful way to help the parent really understand, how do I engage my child more professionally, and what am I really doing in terms of my time with my child.
So it's actually taking all the Risley and Hart research that found all of these language shortfalls and actually showing the family the language fault by having video recordings or audio recordings and playing them back and then talking about how could we have taught differently.
I know I've read about connections with healthcare workers, pediatricians, because as you were saying, it cuts across all families and childcare workers. So to have the connections there about working on language, literacy, as well as parenting skills, connecting with healthcare. I don't know that there's any special program that I can think of, but I know there's, I've read about it.
But one of the things that I haven't done, but I've always wanted to do, but I just haven't found time, is to, you know, we all spend time in doctor's offices waiting. Get a video in there with little, for parents bringing their children into the doctor's office, get videos in there with little parenting tips, how to read to your children, or interesting books. There is a program in New Jersey, I'm forgetting the name of it.
Well, that's what I'm thinking of, Leslie Morrow was
Morrow.
involved with,
Right.
but I can't remember
I don't think it's got a name.
a grant.
Yeah.
No, I think it was a
But
grant.
at any rate, staying on topic, one of the things they do in that program is for each child visit, they give the child an age-appropriate book.
I think it's called Reading First, maybe?
And there's the Dolly Parton.
I was just going to say, there is the Dolly Parton piece, which is
there
actually fantastic, that
Yeah.
they give books to new mothers in the hospital in certain areas. I'm not sure how often it happens, but I know it's been kind of had a vast reach, which is fantastic.
This is with healthcare and pediatricians.
Right, yeah, but I want something in the waiting room so that, you're not, it's
My
just there and
ortho-
handy.
My orthopedist has that about bone injuries. Really, that's what's going on in TV?
But it does go back to, it takes a village, which is a piece.
I know that there are a lot of after-school programs. The Arc has a very successful after-school program. They used to have one at Troy House in Turkey, which was run by Jay Morgan and Mary Louisa Streck,
Yes.
which was in operation for 20 years, very successful. I worked in that program. And, but it's no longer.
We have homework clubs now at all of our sites.
You have,
Yes.
okay. But there are after-school programs, and I'm wondering if we could include the younger children, if there is a way that we could bring some of these young mothers of children with very young children, 0 to 5 years. It has been part of these after-school programs, obviously in a different room, or some sort of program that we can create, utilize the buildings that are already there, working as an education model. And here with the Girls and Boys Club, I don't know if you have any programs here for the very young, but because I know it takes money and politics of it all, so just looking into the buildings where these things are already set and include the very young.
During the day, our community buildings sit idle most of the time, and they could be open to a mother in need program or something like that.
That's right. And I know when I looked at the Troy Housing Authority, I think one of the issues was something about that the rooms were being used. There was an issue with fire,
They're not
the
used
codes and all that. So that was something that we found frustrating because in a way the program was being driven out because of that. But I know that there had been some adjustments made. So
We welcome people to come into our
Good.
buildings to serve our residents now.
good, because it's a perfect place. It was the families who were already there. The kids used to come down in their pajamas and their slippers and be part of the programs there. It was a perfect setting. And I really want to keep reminding again that these parents of poverty are extremely intelligent people, and they are very loving people to their children. I've met some of the best people I've met in this world have been people of poverty. And so we need to keep reminding ourselves of when we are talking to them that these are very intelligent people. And
So I'm skipping around a little bit on the questions, but I am going to go back to number 2, which is what are some of the barriers that families face that can impact children's literacy skills? That's a barrier to me, is that there's a preconceived notion about people who are living in poverty. To me, that's a barrier that we need to get people past, educators past. I used to have a principal that would say to the teachers, the parents are sending us the best kids that they have. Like, they're doing the best they can. Some of our parents are working 2 or 3 jobs. I mean, there are a variety of barriers. But what are some other barriers that families face that are impacting this that we can actually help do something about?
I think just from the education aspect and working in organization with Quest Arts 3, where we pull in across 3 counties, really, our children, one of the barriers that we face in education is transportation. With our families living across 3 counties, if we set up programs in certain areas, it's hard to meet the families that we need. So I think it goes back to the discussion that we had around the first question, the access sometimes. I think Carol brought it up, and I think it was a really good point. Sometimes, families always can't get to our programs, so how do we best meet them? Do we go to them, or how do we create one that we can get them transportation in? I think that's a huge factor in these programs, is getting them there first. And once they're there, I think, that's the big challenge.
Go ahead. I was going to say that I think that more reading goes on when there are good books to read. So there are programs out there, I'm not actually sure if it's still operating, but one was called the 1,000 Books Club, where actually somebody in
It
your district.
I was gonna say it originated in Neighbor Park.
I don't think it originated.
Oh, I thought, oh, okay, I thought I heard that
I
it
think it was
originated,
from
I
the
actually thought I
local-
heard it originated in Neighbor
But
Park.
the
I know
local-
somebody was doing it, yes.
Yeah, the local
Okay.
version of it was
Yeah.
a teacher from Glenmont who
Yep,
lives in your
yes.
school district.
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Yes. But the program is, that there are.
Now that we got that set.
Yeah. The program is this, that every elementary school, but it could be the housing authority sites, has 100 packs of books with 10 books in each pack. Kids on their 3rd birthday is the way the program used to work. I haven't caught up on it lately. On their 3rd birthday, they get a letter that says, "Happy birthday, you're ready for the 1,000 Book Club." And then the child and parent can come to whatever the site is, take a pack of books that are age appropriate for 3 to 5-year-olds and return the pack, you know, when they've done. And when they've read all 100 packs of books, they get a T-shirt or a cap or something that says, "You are a member of the 1,000 Book Club." But it's a very motivational piece. But I think the most important part of it is that parents who haven't been read to a lot when they were young really don't necessarily know how to pick books that would be engaging for their young children. And, you know, the library is critically important in terms of, you know, helping parents to
Well,
find those.
One of the things we've been doing is on back to school nights, we've been going into the schools and signing people up for library cards. And normally, that's not how it works. You have to have ID, you have to have all these things before you can get a card. Well, what we're doing is just giving them the card itself, taking down some basic information, and then when they come, you know, we tell them, just bring it to the library and we'll activate it when you get here. And we found that that's really working. We've had really high return on the cards we've been giving out in schools. And I think just having it physically in your hand, you know, makes a difference. Well, I have it, I may as well use it. And so I'm finding parents are showing up and they're bringing their kids, and we've got parents that are, I had a lady get one for herself, for her 2 kids, and the next week I did see her at the library. So, you know, that is working.
No, I'm sure, and that's funny that you mentioned that, because I had a friend talk to me about this yesterday. We have the Scholastic Book Fair, which I'm sure Troy, Schenectady, they all have a Scholastic Book Fair in their school systems. And she had asked if the libraries, the local libraries, could come into the school on our, because you always have one night, that's kind of your big event, and the libraries will come in and do the library cards and everything else. So I'm wondering if the big city schools also do that too, with you, if they have a book.
Oh, yeah, I've gone to them, I did one at School 12.
So that's something that works well too. So it's a continuation, not just for those people that said you would open house, but they also said.
Well, part of it too is developing a relationship with the school librarians, and unfortunately in Troy, there's only one among 4 or 5 elementary schools. And so part of the problem is that it's not mandated that they have a librarian. It's something that needs to change. I do have an associate who is on the library board for New York State, what do you call it, Regents.
Okay.
Anyways, she told me that they're working on getting elementary librarians mandated in New York State, but when that's gonna happen, I don't know. But I think until that happens, with the current budget crisis, you know, that isn't gonna change. So, you know, we do the best we can.
But those are, but once again, when we talk about doing so many things, that's an excellent thing that's being done. Can it be replicated elsewhere, you know, in other cities like Schenectady and those kind of places?
To add something to that, I know that some parents who are not themselves readers will not be showing up in the library because they're embarrassed. So I'm wondering if there's another component that can be added to that in teaching, encouraging people to come and teaching them how to use books, to talk about the pictures and make up stories about the pictures if the parents are not reading. There's another way that they can engage with books with their children, so that you can have, so that we can bring these other families in who might be embarrassed to be in the library if they're not themselves readers.
Sure. Well, one thing we have is we have a reading dog program, and parents come in with their kids, and I have a literacy volunteer who works, you with each child individually, and the parents also there, and they're modeling that behavior. I mean, some kids are really young, like they could be 5 years old even, and 5-year-old's not gonna be doing a lot of reading, but, and the volunteer may be reading to their child, or actually helping the child read to the dog. But they are modeling that for the parent.
You always want to say something. Another thing that we could do around books for parents who aren't readers, which I think is really something we're thinking about, is to make recordings of the books to go along. And then the parent, if she or he wanted to, could actually listen to the recording a couple of times and then could read the book to the kids. And so the parents' reading skills would be improving as well as their opportunities to read with their kids.
We have read-alongs.
I'm a little interested in the barrier aspect and meeting parents where they are. I mean, has anyone engaged with like the faith community or with workplaces where low-income people work? I mean, is that something we could do to kind of?
There's been book fairs with free books and access to books in schools, bookmobile kinds of things that schools sponsor, having open, in addition to the library, because of just one librarian or whatever of the hours, having bookshelves and book displays that families can take and bring back, but not officially part of the library, donated books, so that they are, greater access to books from a school community site or going around in neighborhoods, similar to the Dolly Garden thing. We're getting donations for the books and tips on reading aloud and reading to your children. There's been several on access.
I think it's been a big push, and I know like the vision, or the vision mobiles that they're coming around. I know there's a dental clinic coming up, where you've been traveling out into the communities and, like you said, meeting where it's needed, meeting where they're at.
Right, is that something we can partner with? I mean,
We're,
okay,
in my building in Troy, one of my colleagues and I are working on running a grant. We started it last year, kind of small scale, where we order books, Scholastic, places like that will have, their bruised books where you can get them really cheaply. And so we had teachers pick, I think the 5 kids in their class who they could identify as needing to have books in their hands over the summer. And we sent books home with all those kids. And we're talking about kind of raising it up a little bit this year, well, actually a lot. And doing something like, following the community gardens, Veggie Mobile, or following the free breakfast and lunch programs in the summertime, and doing, having the books in a vehicle and kind of being a mobile library for them where they can sign them out, but having teachers volunteer to be manning it so that then the teachers can talk to the parents about, you don't need to be able to read all this text, but you could point out, do this with the pictures, or, help the parents understand how they can help the kids with the reading. It's just the grants, I think we rank them in March, so we're just kind of trying to gather all the components of it now so that we can have it up and running for the summer full time.
well, I know just with the United Way personally, we held a book drive this summer with Pioneer Bank and distributed the book at summer meal sites that we also sponsored. And that seemed to work pretty well, but I'm thinking even expanding that, I don't know, with food pantries or family meal nights, that kind of thing, piggybacking on those kinds of services to incorporate literacy.
I forgot. I'm also representing the Albany Area Reading Council, and we have a great project. Oh dear, don't tell Liz. With Habitat for Humanity, where we donate bookcases and books and raise money, and people donate books, and they go along with Habitat.
So it goes into the homes?
For the homes through Habitat for Humanity, yeah. And that's maybe the second year or third year that that we've been doing it. So it's been well received. Again, it's very small scale. But we always have a little blurb out there about donating a book or a bookshelf.
You know, another thing that, yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, just something that I've had experience with. I worked years ago with the literacy people in Albany, and we did some training, and we taught them how to beef up their own vision screenings as part of what they did. Because there's like 10 million kids out there who have undetected vision problems. It's a lot. And you don't know if this kid's, you want to make sure, at least if you're going to teach the kid how to read, that you can see what he's reading before he does that. And you take it for granted. But we've worked with some people. I've worked with some school districts up north in the North Country, and we've done some training and helped purchase equipment or donate equipment. So when the kids come through sort of the literacy programs, they can do a screening beyond just a Snellen chart distance, and sort of taught them where to make appropriate referrals if necessary if a child does not do well on the screening. So it's sort of, again, trying to build partnerships with different people in the community.
We've been talking about literacy just in terms of reading, and literacy involves math, financial literacy, computer literacy. I mean, we could spend the whole evening on trying to define literacy. But something that I've noticed, when we worked at the Troy Housing Authority, that the kids love working on the computers. And I've seen some of the volunteers and the staff using the computer, the books that are on the computers, and getting them to read them there. And, the whole idea of nooks and technology, that's what the kids are like now, that's what they're used to. I mean, I like nothing better than holding the book in my hand, but if we want to get them to read, maybe we need to be more use those other methods too.
Going off of that right now, again, I'm the kindergarten teacher in Schenectady, and I am working on a grant for my classroom to get Nooks, to get Kindles for the kids, even if we can do, partner reading, but it's really going with technology, and it excites kids. Right now, another teacher and I bring our iPads, and the kids read on it as, a reward, or just to make literacy exciting and reading exciting. So I think that if we can get involved in more grants and things like that, to get those in the classroom for kids, in addition to the books.
Susan was one of my fantastic grad students, so she's not here because I told her to be here because she had me 2 years ago. But to her point, one of the barriers that I think people find too when it comes to grants, and it takes passionate people who are going to go after them, because too often the people that are in need of the grants don't have time to be able to write them. Because there are lots of grants that are out there, but schools will lack the person who can actually write the grant to try to get it. And sometimes it's so competitive they might not get it at all. So those are some things that are very difficult as well. Somebody was going to raise their hand over here. You were.
Just a point to go off that, I know access is definitely an issue, to get computers in the home and get softwares, but something that I've used with individuals with disabilities is programs that will read text to you for specifically maybe individuals with reading disabilities or visual impairments. But that kind of software is really helpful for really anybody who maybe is having trouble reading or learning to read, just because it'll highlight the word as you go along and read it to you. You can follow the text. A lot of them have definition tools in there as well. And I believe there are some out there that are free that parents might be able to access.
So, and we've touched on it a little bit, but how can parents, families, and the community encourage children to read? I think there are so many options out there these days. There are millions of books. There are Kindles, iPads, everything. How can we do a better job of encouraging kids to read? And I guess the second part of that question, and I'm going to say it because I'm in a school, I think too often schools suck the fun out of reading because we make it, and I say that to my staff all the time, so it's okay that I'm saying it to you. Sometimes we make it so scientific and we take the magic out of it. And I remember talking to a parent one time, or a parent I was sitting on a panel and a parent asked me a question about what you can do to make sure your child's reading, and she was talking about every night, just kind of drill and kill. And I think it's important for people to understand that it doesn't, every time you read, it doesn't have to be so scientific and painful. Because I do think that schools can do a better job of not doing that to kids and giving sustained reading without always having to ask a question about what happened in the story. I think they do that a lot. So I guess to some of you, to all of you out there, because you've all experienced school in one way or another, how can we encourage people to read, and what can schools do differently where reading is concerned? And that's not setting up Dr. Scanlon at all.
My name is Donna. But I did bring, I didn't know how many people would be here, but, and I didn't have very many of them left, but colleagues and I wrote a little booklet.
You just gave it to Stork, yeah?
You just gave it to you? But one of the, we wrote this for parents of young children to try to help them. It's long, you're gonna look at it and say, oh my goodness, but on our website, each of the topics is actually available to download by itself, and so just one sheet of paper. These little booklets are free to download off the internet. But one of the things that we talk about in there is the fact that we have a tendency to treat reading as a job instead of as a pleasure.
And writing too.
And reading and writing and almost anything academic is a job. And so what we suggest in that little pamphlet is, treat it as fun. Treat it, instead of saying, get your homework done and then you can watch TV, you could say, get your room picked up and then we'll have time for an extra book. And really shift the value that we assign to reading versus everything else. And, I've worked hard to get teachers to change the way they talk about that, because the teachers and parents, and, I did it when my kids were little, get your homework done, and then, there's a special.
We've asked teachers to not make a specific reading list, that the kids have to read something off this list. Let them choose what they want to read. Make sure it says suggested on there, because I got parents who are like, oh, I gotta get this book for him, and then this book, and this book, and it's not like that. And a lot of times, and especially with boys, they're drawn to comics.
Right.
And comics are great. There's no reason why they shouldn't be reading comics. Let them read comics. I have a list on my door to the children's room that says eight reasons to let your kid read comics.
And the whole graphic novels are such a boom right now.
Right.
Because of that.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's being accepting of whatever they want to read. My daughter is in an advanced reading class, and she of course has to read, literature. And I'm telling you, sometimes we're just dying over it, it's just so hard, but she's getting through it and she's trying to enjoy pieces of it. But what her teacher said to her is, when you're in school, there are the meal pieces. They're the meal. Those are the, War and Peace, those kinds of really, literature that you need to read, Shakespeare, those kinds of things. But then, everything else that you read is the candy read. And she loved that, the candy read. So she's always, last night she even said to me, Mom, I've been reading Lord of the Flies every night. I need a candy read, And I thought it was great that her teacher, acknowledged we can have candy reads. And it could be comics, or it could be, 50 Shades of Grey, I don't know, but you know what I'm saying?
Or you could take some of the neat reading and, see if it's written as a graphic novel.
Right.
We have lots of those too.
Yeah.
I'm Nora McDowell, and I'm with Troy Boys and Girls Club in Troy School 14. And I had two kids who were very different about how quickly they learned to read. My son, 5th grade, literally 10th grade reading level. My daughter has struggled, and sometimes I felt like my angst about that I was putting on her. And I guess one things that help is the interventions that help kids in need help all kids.
because she was able to use summer school and she liked it. She didn't see it, I mean, we were able to have her go to summer school and then come to the Boys and Girls Club, so it worked with our schedule. She didn't see it as a bad thing, or she didn't see academic intervention services as a bad thing. She saw it as extra, fun. But it really wasn't until this second grade year that she started reading and for fun. And she was almost starting to turn negative about it, and then something clicked. And I was really glad that she had those supportive teachers along the way who said, calm down. Let's not use the dyslexia word until we have to. Just calm down, just give her the time. And just keep reading to her. Because it just seemed like even in just this past month, something kind of clicked.
Can I say one more thing I forgot to mention? It's really important modeling. As part of what we do, when we're doing story time for the library, we're modeling the parents how to read to their kids. And another thing too, is if adult males, especially adult teachers and librarians, will walk around with a book in their back pocket, that would be a really good thing because they'd be modeling. And it could be, a source of conversation, hey coach, what are you reading? Or, simple thing to do.
There is a lost art, the lost art of storytelling. I work with the Y and after school program, and we've got 45 kids running around the gym trying to get their attention, and what I'll do is say, I'm going to tell a story, and I love storytelling, and I'm able to get the attention of every one of those kids. That is not me, it's just the storytelling has that effect on all of us, if it's told right, adults and children alike. And I think that when the art of storytelling, when you provoke their interest in a specific thing or topic, and then to bring it to their attention that, yes, that's in the book. Now, sometimes I make up the story and I say, is that in the book? Because they want to go get it. And so what I'm saying is that in itself, if that's just a tool that I think that if people just realize, sometimes it isn't taking a book and opening it. Sometimes it's drawing them in. Draw them in first. And I think we forget to do that, because once you got them, then, the book with whatever that topic is or whatever that you're talking about. Now with me, they love the scary stories, and so I have to wing it and come up with some scary thing, Pumpkinhead or something, but they're there, they're listening, they want to know who is Pumpkinhead going to get next.
I talk to teachers a lot about also when they're choosing books or when anybody's choosing a book, because there's so many out there, that you choose books that represent the diversity that you have in your classroom. And you make sure that you have books where they've got characters or pictures of people that represent the children and the families that are within the book and within the classroom. And I think that's one of the greatest things about living in this day and age now, is that we have so many of those to choose from, that there really isn't an excuse for not doing that. And I will support Dr. Fox's point, because you have clearly made a huge impact on my teachers, because the very first thing they talk to parents about is making sure they get an IEP, and your name often comes up. And I will say that that is a huge issue from my teaching experience as well, is that it's something so simple that people don't do because they don't go to the eye doctor enough. And you probably are sitting there thinking you don't go to the eye doctor enough either. You're wearing glasses for 5 years ago. So that's a very important point. One of the things that I'm going to do, and I am going to look at my watch, I am going to want to go around the room in a few minutes, and I want to hear one takeaway that you are taking from here. Because if you are leaving with nothing, if you are leaving with no information, then I have failed at my job. Not to put any pressure on you, but one of the last question is, how can we support our educators and provide a community environment that encourages literacy? We've talked a lot about it, but are there any other suggestions that you have? Because I often think it's a very complicated subject. There are lots of kids that don't think reading is fun because we've sucked the fun out of it, or they don't think it's the cool thing to do. There are a lot of those they don't have access to books. I remember when I was teaching, there were kids that did not have books at home, which is why Thousand Book Club that I will say originated in Maple Park. That's why when I heard about that, I thought that was so fantastic. You started
I
it.
did.
You we got the answer. But I do think that in this, right now in this era of accountability, teachers do have it very tough, and I will say that. You will never hear teachers say that they don't want to be accountable, and we do want to be accountable. As a principal, I'm accountable every day that I walk into the building. But there are some unrealistic demands as well, and it does take a village to go back to that. And so how can we support our educators and provide a community environment that encourages literacy?
I'd like to add, I'd like to expand educators to childcare providers, early
Yes.
childcare providers.
After-school providers
Yep.
with the Boys and Girls Club.
Right, but even before they get to school.
Right.
I mean, I think we think of learning starting in kindergarten, but we really need to talk about the people who watch the kids all day before they get to school as educators, and really work on that kind of notion that, you know, preparation for school is really important as well, and foster early teachers as well as just child babysitters. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, well, I think we have been talking about the whole idea of building vocabulary and how important those things are. And you're absolutely correct, because there are so many more kids going to pre-kindergarten programs or daycares that, you know, I often hear that the way we're gonna change this is to have high quality. Well, everybody wants to have high quality, it's just not gonna happen all the time. And I kind of feel like, how do we get to the people that are not doing the high quality piece yet, and those are the daycare providers too, that it's just some simple steps that we could do, which is where the outreach comes in. Does anyone else have?
I think one way we can support educators in the schools is by listening to them. You know, they're gonna tell you what the needs of the classrooms are, and to provide the help they need to teach the children. I believe that some of the classes in some schools are very large now. If you have a class of kindergarten kids, and it's a very large class, you're really asking the teacher to do the impossible to be able to reach every child. So we need to become really advocate and really use our voices for changing the way the schools are running and the public schools. That I'm not sure that even a principal himself can really do the change, because you are tied to a lot of these crazy policies that are going on and mandates. So, but it is really damaging to children. I teach in a private school right now, but and when I get kids from the public school, one of the things that I hear from parents is, my child was not getting what he or she needed, my child was not reading and was not getting what he needed, or my child was a fluent reader and was being taught phonics even though the child could read. This is a very common case that I hear from, you know, and I am an advocate for the public schools, so that's why I'm saying this. But those are the things that I hear. To have a child in your classroom who is a fluent reader, and yet you're forcing this child to do phonics sheets. It's a very common thing I hear. And the other one is, my child was not taught to read, and my child was one of the struggling readers, and was not in any way provided what he needed to read. There seems to be more of a teaching in the middle. If the child is teaching in the middle, so there's these worksheets that are for everyone, and seems to be no differentiation, although the teachers are taught that they have to differentiate, and they want to do so. But if you have a very large class, let's face it, realistically, what can you do?
Well, you can actually do rotations. And
You can do rotations, but I think you're still not going to be able to reach the child and do the service that the child deserves. I teach right now in small groups in my classroom, and I do the rotations, and it works well because I have 17 children and I have a full-time assistant.
I would like to say on the
So-
opposite side, as a very active and very involved, some people know, a very involved public school parent, we went through in Troy the heartbreaking decision of having to close an elementary school. And it was parent versus parent, neighborhood versus neighborhood. And after living through that, I was very hopeful to find the Alliance for Quality Education as a way that I could be an active parent, and I could work with teachers, and I could look at some of these bigger pictures, and I could talk to the political people who are representing me, who want to know what's going on in our communities and what's going on in our schools. So I think that is one way that we, as parents, we can support our teachers politically. Also, I think there is a benefit for strivers to going to public schools. When my kids go to school and they are well taken care of, and they become leaders in their schools, and they help other kids, and they get empathy. There are things that they are benefiting from being in public schools.
I think one of the things that we could do to support teachers in the school is to acknowledge that half the kids are coming into their kindergarten classroom not really ready to be there. And that there's this pre-K and Head Start, and just if we took just the 4-year-olds and we got the teachers of kindergarten and first grade, second, maybe even third grade, to come together as a group to set a goal of kids reading by third grade. Sometimes I think that the principal, and you might be able to address this, might have a kindergarten through 6th grade or kindergarten through 8th grade span that they're responsible for. And I see the need to sort of have a key principal leadership, if not the principal, maybe a assistant principal who's responsible for that PK to 3rd grade span, so that they're all learning together. Even those PK teachers that are in the community, even those childcare centers that are serving 4-year-olds, not in any kind of language-rich environment. And then the half of the kids who aren't even in any kind of care at all as a 4-year-old, and trying to reach them so that we can increase from 50% to 75% of kids who are ready to come into kindergarten.
And we foster.
And I understand why someone, as a teacher, I sort of want to say, let's advocate for the pre-K, because it's going to help you as a 3rd grade teacher. And if we can link together politically with schools, I think we can have a better effect at actually increasing the quality of early care and education. As early care and educators, we just don't have that kind of clout and power. It's just not happening right now.
I think that teachers, especially now with the Common Core, have been basically thrown under the bus. Because it was a broken system that they didn't break. And it's a holistic issue for the children. You know, I go to my granddaughter's school, and they peek in on the kindergarten and pre-K, and the teacher is trying to console a 5-year-old or 4-year-old, and the other kids see it and they want it as well. They want that TLC. The teachers aren't getting that help that they need to do what they need to do. There's just too much going on in the lives of those babies. You know, they're coming in with a lot of stuff that no child should even know anything about, but yet the reality is that some of them came out of hell and they came to school. And the teacher is the first one to have to deal with that. And then we expect him or her to teach. And it isn't possible, because the need that child has at that point is not that he learned his colors. You know, he needs her to love him and to give him her undivided attention. So again, the need, if we look at the holistic picture of what's happening, the first thing we really need to do for our teachers is give them an applause, and let them know that, yes, we know that you have been thrown under the bus. We have a big problem. But teachers need to know that it isn't just yours, it's an ours thing. And I do feel that teachers do feel that they're not validated, that they're just out there and they're doing the best they can with the little bit of help that they have, if any. And it's a very unfair situation right now.
So how can we bring that back to like a practical solution? Because you're right. Kids are definitely coming in with those situations. Is there something that we can do differently? Like the junior league can.
Well, again, I worked for Head Start for 8 years, and one of the fantastic things about Head Start is that they had family workers. The responsibility of the family worker was to, be that mediate, not mediate, but to get involved with the parent and families and to know what's going on and to be an advocate and mentor them and work with the family. That was the go-between for the teacher and that household, that family worker. That in itself, because that connection where the parent has an issue and they have some help connected with the school. I've seen that help. And Head Start also had the very early education piece where they would go into the homes. I believe the kids were 3 years old. It was mostly in the rural areas, and they would go into the homes and read stories and do those things with the families. But things like that. But I think that one of the major issues right now is that the backs of the teachers are being broken. And if we break that, then we have nothing.
I was gonna say that, I have called teachers at times because the kids come here after school, and we serve 5 to 12-year-olds for our after-school program. But every time I see a change, it's not normal, change in behavior, or all of a sudden this kid hasn't had homework all week, one of the counselors gives me information and I'm like, well, that doesn't sound right. I call the school, I find out who the teacher is, I speak to the teacher. We've also had times where we've had to talk to a caseworker, and I think it's important to have those conversations when a caseworker is involved or a teacher is involved, and everyone can be on the same page. Then when we talk to parents, we can communicate the right information. We know what's going on in this kid's life, because it's not just the schools, it's everywhere that child goes. The child goes to school, the child is on the Little League team, the child is in the science club, the child comes to the after school program. Everywhere that child goes, that child interacts with certain adults. And if all of those adults are on a different page, then it makes it a little bit more chaotic for the child. So I feel like, forums like this where there's people in different sectors having a conversation are really, really important. But in that child's specific life, all of the adults in that child's life need to be in communication with each other so that they can be on the same page.
Mrs. Martin emails her homework to every kid's parent and anybody else. And then I forward that to Irene's after-school counselor, because I'm picking Irene up at 5:30, 6 o'clock. She's an overtired bear. She has a much better chance of getting her homework done at 3 o'clock. So don't forget the after-school piece, because the best parents are tired.
And then in the after-school program, the people who work here have, they have more freedom to converse with the child about personal life and what's going on and how are they feeling or how is school. A lot of times they don't have that conversation with the parent at home. By the time they get home, they're tired, and or the parent is tired from working 2 or 3 jobs, and they don't have that conversation. So we recognize that here, and we try to complement that as much as possible. It would be nice if we could have a program here for 0 to 4. I think that would enhance what we already do.
And I would like to support teachers in the background. I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Jessica.
Jessica. What Jessica said, I was really right on. With teachers, especially at kindergarten class, they really need more support, more aids, perhaps volunteers if there is a way that we could get volunteers to go in these kindergarten classes. But I really truly believe, going back to what I said, that they need the help in order to do the job, and teach these children, because there are some amazing teachers out there who's, like you said, your words, backs are broken, they really need the help. So support the teachers,
I think what I'd like to close with, because it says I have concluding remarks. So I'm going to conclude. What I worry about in education is that we're missing out on a great deal of potential of kids that are missing out. And I'm going to give you a very quick story. So I grew up in a family of the youngest of 5. And my dad died when I was in 5th grade. So I was a high-risk kid. I was retained in 4th grade. My mom got her GED when I was in 6th grade. I was a sub-sophomore because I didn't have enough credits to be a full-fledged sophomore, so I was 2 years older than my peers in my class. And I graduated 4th from last in my class from Queensbury High School. I went to 2 community colleges where I dropped out. I had a 1.7 GPA at Hudson Valley. And which is not easy because you have to skip a lot of classes. But I was the first to go to college. So my sister just kept saying, just get a 2-year degree. And unfortunately for my sister, she was National Honor Society, but she graduated the year 2 months after my dad died. So she stayed home to take care of us. And by the time I got to Hudson Valley, I was running cross country, and running was something that saved my life. And I had a coach that said, go to the Learning Assistance Center because you're not going to be a professional runner. And I went to the Learning Assistance Center after failing most everything for a great period of time. And I went in with a 1.7 and I walked out that semester with a 3.86. I spent time every single week. I was accountable. The professor was accountable. I went to class, some simple stuff. I studied, but I had to learn how to study because I really didn't know how to. So I was one of those high-risk kids. And I went on to get my doctorate, and now I'm here and I'm a principal. I always think about this issue as what happens if I didn't have the teachers. My mom was very supportive, but she did not know what to do. I heard buckle down so many different ways, and I still don't know what buckle down means, but you know, she doesn't say it to me anymore because maybe it did work. My mom didn't know what to do except for to support me in whatever venture I went into, and luckily I found some teachers that absolutely changed my life. I don't want kids at the elementary level to go through the same things that I did. And you're right, kids, doesn't matter what you look like, you don't know what these kids are coming from. And their reality is very different than the reality you may have grown up in. So we can't judge them based on what their reality is. And you take them from where they are and you try to bring them up to the next point. I think it's wonderful that all of you would come on a Thursday night to spend a couple of hours and discuss these things. I do a lot of stuff, and for me tonight, this was powerful, so you just gave me about 35 new blog ideas, which is great. 2 things that you can do. One is going to have to be quick, the other one might take you some time. I want to go around and just get one takeaway that you're going to take from this experience in a sentence. I do have to put parameters on, even though I'm not under the same parameter. The other thing, which is a little more like this, please make sure you do the survey, because I just met these ladies last week, but I've known Sarah for a very long time, and they care deeply about what is happening in the community, and they want to make changes. So I started to my right last time, so I'm going to start to my left. Sarah asked.
I'm sorry,
Sure.
but I would have to go meet a soccer bus.
Oh, sure.
So,
A soccer bus.
You guys mind if I?
No, that's fine.
No, one thing that I was thinking about, this is a huge issue. I mean, it's on so many levels, but it's almost like we need to start small.
Yeah.
You know, something that really works. And there's some programs out there that, you know, your Everybody Wins program sounds like, what a great idea. You know, I don't know, I'm just thinking that it needs to be, so something of my takeaway, I like that. And maybe something I can do, you know, you sparked me with the RPI lacrosse team. Well, I teach at Hudson Valley and early childhood.
We've had Hudson Valley staff and some students, but we need more.
Right, and I'd like to see, you know,
There's
how could we
waiting
make
list.
that work? We have early childhood club, you know, there's something there's a piece there that could definitely be connected. But you know, that's what I'm just thinking, like, start small. It's fun, something that really truly works, and then grow it. And I was thinking about the whole reference to AIDS in Africa, you know, teaching people within your own community. So start small and then You know, how can we kind of grow it? That's my powerful words
Very
for
good.
today. Off I go.
Good luck meeting the soccer.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks for giving me some extra time to think about my takeaways since I'm just done. It's hard for me to have one takeaway because my goal here is to try to think about what you're throwing out there and how I can use that to really add some depth to some of the programs that we're already doing. And you made me think about some other things. I like your idea about someone's idea about getting into the pediatrician's offices with the video. Jessica, I like your idea about the, getting people going their guitar and maybe training, instead of maybe going into the communities, or training people to work in their own communities. So I'm thinking, I have a lot more depth to some of our projects right now. Thank you very much.
I think the thing that I took away today, being a junior league member and a teacher, kind of builds off what Jessica started us with, was it takes a village to raise a child, but often the village isn't involved. And I think it's really about building relationships, and I understand from the teaching perspective and coming from the junior league perspective that I need to build more relationships, not only with my parents and my students, but with the community members that they're involved in every day, and draw everybody into that inner circle and what is gonna best meet that child's need. Because like Peter DeWitt said, you know, really, it's not a one size fits all, so it's really gonna be involving the close members of that child.
I'm sort of going to follow up on that. You know, professional like me, we tend to get in our own little world, and we would say this is a vision problem, but this may just be what got them into my office. And I need to maybe do a better job as a person, a resource person for these people, telling them where they can go next and what else is available for them. This is not just a kid with an eye problem. The eyes tend to not walk in by themselves, you know, to the office that often. So this is a person with a family and parents and difficulties at school, and I need to figure out how to be a better resource for the parents that come into my office as well.
I really like the ideas that we talked about implementing programs for the 0 to 5-year-olds.
It wasn't until very recently that I knew or learned that so many of these programs were even available around here. This is just something I'm starting to realize and understand. So something I want to do is hopefully create a ripple effect. I work with a lot of students who everybody needs to have an internship these days. Everybody's looking for these opportunities to develop their skills and get involved in the communities. So the more I know about these kind of programs, the more I can pitch them to our students and hopefully spread that these opportunities are available and that they're needed in our communities.
First of all, thank you to the Junior League for convening this meeting and taking on this issue. This is not an issue that is unique to this community by any stretch of the imagination. There's some really great work happening in the state, and I think if looking at some of those other communities, you could really expedite and develop processes that are going to be more effective and more efficient. And one I would mention right now is we're trying to launch the campaign for grade level reading in New York. In fact, there's a group meeting next week in Syracuse. A number of communities that have signed on to that campaign. That may be something that for the league, because they're looking for grassroots efforts like this, that they can help support and develop.
I really feel that I'm taking away from this that everyone here really feels very deeply and cares very much about this. And so it's actually hard for me to bring my research, evidence-based, knowledge to a local community. So I hope that you understand that the things that I heard might not fit what the research is saying is the best practice. And so for me, I'd like to share that I'm taking away a need to communicate that a low intensity, low duration activity isn't going to be very effective. And next year when we measure literacy or school readiness, it's going to look exactly the same. And many of the ideas are very low intensity. And so I feel need to take away, that I need to figure out how to get the community involvement piece without sort of like throwing cold water on everybody and saying, no, don't do that, it's not working yet, you know. So I'm trying to figure out how to bring, that's what I have to take back, how to bring the literature base that says some of these ideas really haven't been found to be effective, and to get us to be more effective at what we do.
I'm going to email each of the volunteers that are mentors, and I was gonna say, don't suck the fun out of reading, but, because I like the word suck. But I
It's the
think
only time I say it.
I wanna put a positive spin on it, so I'm gonna say, remember to make reading fun, or something like that.
You can always say, don't be the vacuum cleaner of fun for reading, change it around.
As a representative of Rensselaer County government, I want to be able to take back, you know, the great conversations that took place here tonight and see if there's anything that you can do to help your endeavors.
As somebody who is in the schools with, you know, with these kids every day, it's great to know that there is so much support and that, you know, that people are trying to figure out how to fix what's broken. And, you know, I just, like Candace said, that, you know, great conversation tonight.
Well, I want to say thank you for doing this, it's been really helpful. And one thing I realized is there's a lot more community organizations around than I even realized, and so I've got a lot more potential partners to do things with, and that's exciting.
And I was going to say the same thing. As a literacy educator, and working with teachers in schools, we're on the hot spot quite often. And as you were saying, the pressures in today's climate make it very difficult to love reading and keep the on in. But it's encouraging tonight to hear how many folks are involved in all different aspects, because there's not one easy answer.
No, there isn't an easy answer, but it doesn't mean that we don't try to do something. The research actually suggests that certain things in certain hands can have an effect, and even if it's small, it can be a better outcome for kids than if we do nothing. So there's no question, but we'll get the best benefits from really powerful and long-term and long day interventions with kids, but that's so expensive, it's not going to happen in the near future. We need to start now, and it's wonderful to see the energy that's behind that. So thank you to the Junior League, it's really a great undertaking, and it better not be a one-year thing.
Because it's long-term.
For me, I would definitely say that taking away from this whole thing is to do this more places and more consistently, to do this in the community where I work, to have people come together and try to support the educators, the teachers, the parents, you know, the community members. To do this more often, I think would be more impactful, and to make the awareness, it's all about awareness. And if people aren't aware, they're not going to work on these issues. I know a lot of people are talking about reaching out to parents, and I know in Schenectady, there's a gap. You know, 26 kids in my class, I talked to 2 parents. You know, there's no communication bridge. So once you make that bridge, or you reach out and you find those ways, talking to other folks that know how to do that, you can make that awareness and create this happening more often.
I would say the importance of building relationships is evident here tonight. And, you know, I kind of look back and I think, all right, you really view this through your perspective of where you're sitting. And you hear so many other perspectives tonight, and what people are trying to do, and successes they've had, or the challenges they've had. And I think just the general conversation, building those relationships is very important.
There's been a lot of good brainstorming in this session. A lot of new ideas are coming out. I also found that going back to the very first question, as far as what literacy skills that children need, and just the basic building conversations and having that conversation with your children and teaching them how to engage in conversation.
I made it back in time. I would say what I've taken from this, I'm really happy that I sat in when I could. It's hard when a meeting is being held in the building that you work in, so I had to be in and out. But I am a former English teacher, so this was a very nice conversation for me to sit in on. I think a lot of times there are a group of people with awesome ideas, and there are even great things happening, or great programs happening, or great educators doing awesome things in their classrooms. But oftentimes, or more often than not, all of those people are doing it individually. And I think what I take away from seeing a whole group of people in this room is that it doesn't have to be that way. That we can actually do what we do well and complement what we do with each other.
For me, I look at it at a school perspective, and I think Jessica said it well when she said that a lot of teachers' backs are being broke right now, and there's a lot of anxiety and stuff. So I was made aware of a lot of different agencies and programs in literacy out there. So from a school perspective, I think, how can we partner with them and bring them into schools and make that information aware, whether it's just giving space in the school for them to run the programs after school, getting the information out to parents, but how can I better partner with these organizations to get the information out there and help them bridge what we're already doing in the schools?
I feel that I took away that there's more support than I thought, and outreach programs that are available that I can share with students and staff members.
As a board member of the Troy Boys and Girls Club, I would like to invite you to like our Troy Boys and Girls Club Facebook page.
Yep.
And parents are on social media, and I think schools are afraid of it, and I think it's to your detriment. But I do want to say that part of the success of my children's education experience has been continuity. Continuity in their primary school and continuity in their after-school program. So, and fun, buzz club. I think you need a mix. I'm not so crazy about extending the school day in the school. Don't forget about the community-based organizations that have, this is our 110th anniversary. It keeps going. And our mission is to enable all young people, especially those who need us most, to reach their full potential as productive, caring, responsible citizens. Nice job, Danielle, putting that out.
I'm really excited by this conversation. The United Way, one of our taglines is harnessing the caring power of community. And I like the idea of everyone starting small, but also by taking all of our small little projects and putting them together, maybe we can have that bigger effect, that bigger long term, because everyone individually only has so much resources, has so much energy. But if we can all do our little part in the grand scheme of things, that would be really great. And so what I'm hoping from this conversation and maybe further conversations is to get on that path.
I am glad to be here to hear the story that you guys told, and just taking it in. Me as a parent, like the perspective of a parent, I want to probably just have more conversation with my child and do cut back on the TV a little bit, and try to make reading interesting to her, instead of like her just watching TV or trying to put a burden on her, like, okay, read this, it's not what you like, but let's find something together to read to take it from there.
I'm impressed. I didn't know about all the literacy programs that are out there, so that is good information.
Same thing, and knowing about programs like taking a library card out and making it important for children in need.
I'm gonna say 3 things instead of 1.
Well, you can anyway, but
The first one is thank you to every single person in this room for saying yes and agreeing to be here tonight. The second thing is if you know of a smart, passionate woman
that wants to work on these issues. The Junior League is here to be a resource for her, and there are membership information right there on that table. So if you can think of someone in your life that, or it's you, that wants to work on this, please take our membership information and consider joining us. And then the thing that I really liked today, the idea that really stuck with me was the part that the community, that every single person in the community can do, like walking around with a book in your pocket was mentioned, and the conversations that we can have with children that we know that are in or outside of our family about reading, and maybe like drip, drip, drip will result in an ocean.
That's it? Okay. I guess what I take away from this is that I have a lot of things that I can do where I work. My office is at Sunnyside Center, and there is a daycare, there's a preschool, there's an after-school program there, and I'm a community advocate for the kids at school in the neighborhood where School 2 is, and where Martin Luther King Apartments are, so that's School 18 as well. So I think, you know, I'm going to hook up with my Junior League friends, and they're gonna help me out. So that's what I take away from it. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming. I want to reiterate, like I said, I would really appreciate you taking your time. So hand to you.
And then with Danielle, come up. Peter, this is a mug and a gift certificate from our local bookstore.